Hi, it's Chris Betcher here. I want to take you through some introductory stuff about Google Earth and how you'd use it for mapping pins and marking out what we call points of interest or POIs. And so I've started a little project here, and I'd just like to show you how you contribute to these points of interest. So I'm just mapping out a number of corners here in Australia. So you can see our country is made up of certain states, and where the boundaries of the states actually meet or cross over, there are a number of corners. And so I've marked some out here. You can see I've marked one here already. This is the corner of Northern Territory, Queensland and South Australia, and it's known as Popal Corner after a surveyor who did a lot of work in the area back in the day. If you move over to the far end of that line, it takes you to this point here called Haddon Corner, and that's where the corner of South Australia juts into Queensland. And way over on the other side of the country, you've also got the point where the South Australia line meets the West Australian border, and that there is known as the Surveyor General's Corner. So as you can see, I've created the corners over here. I've actually created a folder. I've called it Aussie Corners, and I've added in some of the information here about these three corners. Now there's a fourth one I'd like to include as well, and it's called Cameron Corner. So it's actually, let's just zoom out a little bit here. So let's just zoom right out of this map and turn it around. To turn a map around, by the way, if you click on the N for north, it should zip around there to face north. Okay, now I'm just going to go and find manually the point that I want. Now, I could search for it, but I'm just going to zoom in here. It's actually this point here where Queensland, South Australia and New South Wales meet. So right there, and you can see there's actually a marking there for Cameron Corner. But the border technically is just down here. So what I'd like to do is to mark that and put some information in. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a pin. And up here, there are three types of POIs we could add in here. A place mark, an area, or what they call a polygon, and a line, or what they call a path. And so you can mark out individual spots, lines, or areas on a map. I'm just going to use a point or a place mark. So I click the place mark button, and you can see two things happen. First of all, a place mark pin appears, and I can drag that around. I can move it anywhere I like. So I'm just going to drag it here and put it right on the corner there of the intersection of those three boundaries. And over here, it lets me name it. So I'm just going to name this Cameron Corner. Okay. Now, I'd like to put a little bit of information in here. So I'll leave that open, and I'll just whip over to the side here. And I've actually already done a Google search here on Cameron Corner, and I've found some information. And so here's a nice little summary here. Google puts a nice card up here with some summary information. So that'll do me. So I will copy that. Let's copy with Command C, and then I'll go back over to the map and I will paste that information in there, just like that. Now, the next thing I'd like to put in there is a link to the Wikipedia article about Cameron Corner. So let's go back over to the web. And again, there's a link there, but I've already pre-opened it. So here is the Wikipedia article about Cameron Corner. So I'd like to take that address. So we'll copy that address and we'll go back over to our map. And where it says add link, I'll simply paste, Command V, paste the link into the Wikipedia article. And it could be a link to anything you like. So I'll say OK. And you can see that it goes in there. Now, the other thing I'd like to include is an image. So again, let's just go back over to the web. And I've already done a little image search here, and I've found a whole bunch of images about Cameron Corner. And the thing is, when I click on the pin on my map, I want a bubble to open up and show me this information, but I don't want the picture to be too big, otherwise it just gets a little unwieldy. So one of the neat things about Google Images is as you mouse over, you notice that it's showing me the pixel dimensions of the images in the bottom corner here. So here's a nice little one here, 300 by 448, and if I just click on that, you can see this is actually the post that sits right on the corner of the three states. That will do me. The easiest way to get it is to go click this button that says View Original Image, and it takes you to a page with only the image. And you'll notice the URL is in fact the link directly to the JPEG, cameroncorner.jpg. So I will borrow that URL and I will go back to my map, and in the Add Image button here, I'll simply paste that URL, Command V, and say OK. And so you can see that that goes in there. Now, if I was to say OK to this now, then when I click on my pin, you can see that it opens up with the information that I copied, the link to the Wikipedia article, and the image, now neatly contained inside this bubble that pops up, or balloon, I think that is the correct term for it. So that's how you go about creating points of interest and adding the information to it. And you can see that because I was actually in the Aussie Corners folder before I started creating that, it's actually gone into that folder. If it wasn't, I could pick it up and just drag it, and I could drag it to a new location, but it is in the right spot, so I'll leave it as it is for now. Now that's a nice way of creating some geographical information. If I click on the folder itself, if I double click on the folder itself, the map will zoom out and it will show me the extents, what in mapping terms they call extents, where I can actually see all of the pins contained in that folder in one view. And if I just expand that out again and I double click on, say, the Cameron Corner pin, it will go like that and it will zoom in. Now, when I picked this pin, I actually was taking a completely perpendicular view of the Earth. So it's imagine I'm directly above this Cameron Corner point, looking straight down at it. And that may or may not be the view I want. So you can use the tools for navigating around, and just to refresh you, it's hold down the Shift key, and you can use the map, and you can rotate the map any way you like. So I might just zoom in a little bit there. Maybe zoom in just a little closer, move that around. Perhaps just sort of rotate that slightly, make it a little bit more of an interesting view. Okay, and when you find a view that you like by rotating it around and getting the right perspective, if you simply right-click on the pin, you can click this option that says Snapshot View, and it will actually take a snapshot of the view as you've currently set it up. And what that means, if I was to go somewhere else now, let's zip up to, say, Haddon Corner. Okay, and we're following the line up there like that and looking at Haddon Corner. Then when I decided to go back to Cameron Corner by double clicking it, it will take me back and it'll actually return me to the snapshotted view that I took. And so you can see it's a nice way of going in and just seeing a particular view of a place, and it's a nice way to do a tour. Now, here's one last thing that I think you would like to know about. If you click on the folder itself, you'll notice down here this little button appears. It says Play Tour. Now, this button isn't here. If I click somewhere else, if I go away from that, that button disappears. You only get the button when you click on the folder that contains a set of points of interest. Now, when that button appears, if you click on that button, what it will do is it'll fly to the first corner, like that, or the first place in the list. It'll wait there for a designated period of time, and then it will fly to the next point of interest, and then the next point of interest, and finally to the last point of interest. So it's pretty good to, if you are creating a map with a series of points of interest in it and you'd like to then showcase those, you can very easily create a tour just by clicking on the name of the folder that contains it and pressing that button there. And once you've created a tour, you'll notice this little panel pops up here, and this panel is a sort of a play button on there, and you can scrub through and see the different points in the tour. There's a button on the side here to repeat the tour, so sort of great for sort of classroom displays when you just want to have a series of points all constantly showing on the board. Or there's a button next to it to save, and I could click that button and actually save that tour. Let's call this Tour of the Corners. And again, you could put more information and stuff in there if you wanted to. And when you save that, you see it saves it here as a self-contained tour. Now, you could take that self-contained tour and you could email it to somebody. And typically, I'm imagining here a student would do the tour and then email it to the teacher. And so you would be able to send this tour to the teacher and maybe submit it for assessment or whatever else you'd like to do with it. But the fact that you can create a tour and then make it a self-contained unit, and so long as you open it up in Google Earth, it will play back the tour and show you all the things at each of those points. Now, there is another slightly more advanced way of making a tour as well, other than just putting the points into the folder up here and simply pressing the play button. You can actually record your own tour, complete with audio. So let me show you how you do that. So there is a button up the top here, And you can see if I press that button, little recording button there, record a tour, this small panel appears at the bottom. It has a microphone button and a play button. When I press the microphone button, I'll get sound. If I just want to record motion, I can just press the red button. But I'd like sound in this case. So imagine I'm a student. I've created my points of interest, and I now want to create a tour to submit and show the teacher or share with the rest of the world or the class or whoever else. So I can press the microphone button, and so let's just do a very simple one here. Hello and welcome to my tour about the different points around the borders of Australia. Let me take you to the first one. This is called Cameron's Corner. And we're going to fly over here to Cameron's Corner. And you can see that that's the point where Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia meet. Let me rotate this around and just show you what a desolate dry country this is, with sand dunes stretching off into the distance. The next point we'd visit is Haddon Corner. That's by travelling directly north of Cameron Corner. And this is the corner where it meets Queensland, right there, and so on. So you get the idea. Let me just stop this. Okay, now, hello and welcome to my tour about the different points around the borders of Australia. So you can hear the tour playing back there, and it's doing the not only the audio it's recorded, but it's also recording all of the motions. You'll see where I turn the camera around here. It's recording the rotation that I did. Let me just stop that. So you get the idea. So you can actually record a tour, complete with narration, complete with remembering all of the movements and rotations, and anytime you move the map around to show a different view, it will record that in the tour as well. And again, when you get to the end of the tour, and you click the little save button there, and you can click, let's call this slightly better. Tour of the corners. Okay, and we'll save that. And so you can see now I've got a second tour. And again, if I wanted to send that off to the teacher or to anyone else to look at, I could simply say email, and it would pop up a box to email that off to whoever I want to send it to. So there you go. There are two ways of making tours of points of interest in Google Earth. And I think you'll find both of them extremely useful in the classroom. Just give it some thought about how you might use this in whatever subject you happen to teach. It doesn't have to be geography.